Engagement metrics are probably the most important elements that you can look at if you're engaging with us on Instagram, or if you're leaving reviews on the website, if you're engaging with the brand in some way, liking our videos on YouTube.
Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce toolbox experts perspective. Joining us today, we have Nate Kennedy. Nate first joined us on an episode in 2024. He has 2 decades of experience. He was previously at a company called Horizon Hobby. He was VP of Global Brand Marketing. And we are very excited to have Nate back on the show. Welcome, Nate.
It's good to be here.
Awesome. We're very lucky to have you for the first time back in 2024. But for those that haven't heard that podcast, maybe they're new to this series, can you maybe share your path from co-founding Select Blinds to leading marketing at Horizon Hobby?
Absolutely. I'll try and make it brief too. My career kind of starts with my disdain for going to college. So I tried it and I hated it. And it was in the mid 90s and the internet was new and fresh. And a friend and I decided we were going to just jump into building internet companies. And so we built a couple, didn't really amount to much. And then we landed on the concept of Select Blinds and launched that in 2003. Spent 16 years there from day one to when we closed the transaction with Hunter Douglas. And that was in May of 2019. Enjoyed my time there, learned a great deal about e-commerce and about how things get done. A lot of lessons that I hope to never have to learn again, and some great experience that I think has created a foundation for me to be super successful in almost any area when it comes to e-commerce. After that, took some time off. Opportunity came up at Horizon Hobby where they were looking for some help with their e-commerce business, and I wanted to sell something fun. Window coverings are cool, but they're not fun. Horizon Hobby's product line is a lot more fun than any window covering that I ever sold. So I spent 6 years there helping them re-platform from what they were on to Salesforce, helping get their team built up to the level that it needed to be in order to grow their e-commerce and direct-to-consumer business. Spent some time working on marketplaces and helping to increase visibility of their product there. And then they shifted me over to a brand marketing role with an emphasis on customer experience, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I love having that access to the customer, and I love the storytelling aspect of marketing and being able to create messages that deliver an emotional connection to the customers. Because I really think that most brands that aren't selling commodity products need to have that type of an emotional connection to their customers in order to see sustained growth and loyalty. So spent 6 years there. The tariff situation kind of threw a wrench into everything that they had going over there. And so found myself in a situation where the team I had built and everything that I had done kind of made me unnecessary, if you will, kind of a layer of nice to have leadership that they didn't really need anymore. And so we mutually made the decision that it was probably time for me to move on to something else. And so I'm enjoying the last summer that I have with my oldest son as he gets ready to go to college for his senior year. And we'll probably start looking more aggressively as we get closer to the fall. But grateful to be here with you and to share some of my insights and some of the things that I've learned over the 20 plus years that I've been doing this, and looking forward to hearing what's going on with you and Noivu as well.
Yeah, very cool. And I think when we last spoke, you just rolled out a loyalty program. We talked a lot about paid tiers, building that referral engine. Looking back now, what aged well, what didn't age so well? Curious what some of the learnings of going through that was.
The tiered approach was the right approach. That's something that landed very well. I think the level at which we rewarded each tier is something that if I could go back in time, I'd probably do a little differently. I think we too heavily rewarded the top tier and didn't pay enough attention to the bottom tier. The middle tier was still pretty solid, but we didn't give enough value to the bottom tier. We also, I think, probably a little too heavy on the discounting engine versus the experiential rewards and the emotional things that people get attached to, like special drops of gear that only come to loyalty members. I'd probably do more of that if I could go back in time. But overall, I think it was a successful transition. We had a paid tier that had over 1,500 paying subscribers when I left, and they were getting the royal treatment. And so there was no reason for them not to pay. But again, if I go back in time, I'd probably more evenly distribute the rewards.
What was one of the assumptions that you had going in that you're just completely off the mark on?
So I thought going in that by offering the paid tier, we wouldn't really alienate the rest of the base. I think we alienated the bottom a little bit, and it became a point of contention for those who didn't want to pay for the experiential tier that we had. And we gave benefits like improved customer service and stuff where you would get the express treatment. And that didn't land well with with the other two tiers because they didn't feel like they should have to pay to receive an express lane. Once you introduce an express lane, everybody thinks they should have access to it. And for our product, given the technical nature of it, there's a consistent need for customers to get technical support. And so while that was very powerful at the top tier, kind of dissuaded some of the other tiers from being as loyal to us as I would have hoped.
That's really interesting. So it's kind of like when you go to the all-inclusives and they block off certain beaches for certain area, you feel like it created too much of like, call it like a hierarchy amongst the client base?
We did. And you have to really understand the client base. In hindsight, I probably should have saw this because we had two different bases. We had a very high earning base that focused on the air side of the product, and then our surface base was more blue collar. And the surface would be the cars and the boats, and the planes is the air side. And by doing this, I kind of created an environment where all of the air people went into the paid club and the surface people didn't. So they kind of created a class system that they didn't intend to create. And I think in hindsight, I'd do it differently. But the beautiful thing about this is you can revamp it all the time. And as I left, there was a revamped version being worked on that solved a lot of the issues that we identified in what we launched. And I think they'll be better served when they launch that later this year.
Very cool. You had mentioned last time that having programs like this and loyalty in general makes brands that sell commodities less vulnerable to Amazon style churn. And I guess in a way, that's kind of what Amazon is really, really good at. How did you see any of that play out in the stickiness or any kind of comments? Like, do you think the initial thesis still holds true?
I think it does. I think if you can offer a loyalty program that creates an emotional connection to the customer, I think you get a lot further. I think personalization of that loyalty club helps to drive home the element that you care about them, knowing what they bought and what they potentially are going to need, and really communicating to them individually versus the way things work in the early 2000s where you would just send an email to everybody and you really didn't care who got it. And you were totally focused on how loud you could talk versus the message you were trying to convey. I think that's a big difference. I think exclusivity, I still believe in. I think that there's an element to that you need to have in your loyalty club. Sephora does a really good job of this with their VIP access program to a lot of their best customers. I wish they had rolled that out before I did mine because I could have learned a lot of lessons about what to do and what not to do based on just listening to what their customers were saying about their loyalty program. But I think you got to get away from the monetary rewards. I don't think that drives the stickiness that you're looking for. I think that drives a Kohl's style customer, which are evaporating. I think the experiential stuff, especially as you get into the Gen Z and the millennials, they're savvy consumers. And so they're going to find the best price. They're not as driven by getting the lowest price as they are feeling special about themselves. And I think that your loyalty club needs to have that type of a reward program where it's not just discounts. Discounts are still a part of it, but the ability to be special, the ability to get swag that is unique because you are a part of that loyalty club. And maybe even like the workshops and things like that, behind the scenes workshops and beta testing for products. I think all those things are more appealing to the younger crowd, whereas discounting is kind of Gen X and above.
That's really interesting. Do you mind diving in a bit deeper on what surprised you the most about monetary incentives not really being the kind of end all be all?
I think what hammered that home for me is seeing how many, because the way we structured our club, it was a point system and you could turn the points in for discounts and different experiential rewards and stuff. And how many people were saving their points and not turning them in for discounts, saving towards something big, kind of hammered home to me how the monetary value was becoming less valuable to people. And I think that without seeing that with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. Being Gen X, I tend to love to save money, but seeing that the experience to these people meant as much or more than a discount. So I think that's probably where that concept has come from and what has changed my perception of it.
Curious, once you had this program launched, you ran campaigns to either grow it, scale it. Maybe talk to us a bit about how you went about acquiring customers. Was it organic? Was it paid? How did you look at customer acquisition and what were the stickiest customers? Like, was there a chance that you were paying to bring in the wrong customer?
So one of the things that we identified pretty quickly is that because we wanted to get them on our marketing list, we were including enrollment in transactions, and they almost had to opt out to not be enrolled in our loyalty club. And what we found is that we had a lot of people who would buy from us once or twice and not come back, at least not under that account. And it was because they didn't realize. And when we asked them, hey, did you know you were part of our loyalty club? 90% of the people who had been there less than 2 times didn't know that they were a part of our loyalty club. So there became a challenge that we had in our messaging by trying so aggressively to get them on the list. We were doing ourselves a disservice because they didn't know they were involved in it. And so any of the value that could have come from that loyalty club, they didn't know about. And so we had to shift our messaging a bit and come at it with a reintroduction of, hey, you're a part of this, and these are the cool features that you get from it. And you had a lot of people who weren't really interested, were there to buy one thing, and maybe the local hobby shop didn't have it, and they really didn't want to buy from us long term. And then you had some people who, once they knew about it, became engaged with it. But I think that's the biggest challenge is helping your customers, reminding them that they have this. I'm a T-Mobile customer and they have these My T-Mobile Life. And there are so many benefits involved in that where you get Netflix on them and Hulu at a discount. But it's really hard to keep up on everything that they're offering, and they're changing it all the time. It's a challenge I think that a lot of us are probably dealing with that we don't realize is the benefits not being super in your face for the customers. I think that's still something that as I am spending some time just recalibrating myself, I'm spending a lot of time looking at loyalty clubs and what works for people and what doesn't. And I found some really interesting things like the Nike Fit Club. They do a really good job of gamifying it and tying in purchases and what you've bought to the experience that you have in exercising on the app. And I think they're probably so good at it that they can tell how many miles you run and when to recommend another pair of shoes to you because you're probably wearing out the pair of shoes. Yeah. That's the kind of connection that I think you need to find with your loyalty club. And in my next role, it's likely where I'll spend a lot of focus is on the loyalty club, identifying how can we create that stickiness that Nike and Sephora have done with theirs. How can we do that with our product line? Where are those contact points and those emotional connections with the customers that we can kind of wedge ourselves in and become a part of their life?
What are some of the leading indicators that you looked at to understand, obviously before revenue, before LTV, that something was in fact working?
Engagement metrics are probably the most important elements that you can look at. And so we had elements of our loyalty club that would be, hey, if you're engaging with us on Instagram or if you're leaving reviews on the website, if you're engaging with the brand in some way, liking our videos on YouTube, those types of things that you're able to see if they're engaging that way. And then from a customer acquisition standpoint, this was a challenge that I had back in my days at Select Blinds because we were a commodity-based company and we were on level playing field with everybody. There was nothing different about our product except the experience that you had with our site. And so when we would try new things, our leading indicator would be we offered free sample swatch packs that would allow customers to get color swatches of what we were selling. And when we saw an uptick in that, we knew that something was working and that the revenue was going to follow because we knew what the conversion rate was on those sample packs. And so I think if you can find a creative way to build an indicator into your shopping flow that allows you to see when something's working before the revenue and the LTV follow and the ROI comes in, it allows you to further lean into those type of activities. And we saw that at Select Blinds when we partnered with Extreme Makeover Home Edition. Way back in the day, a lot of people probably don't even remember what that show is, but Ty Pennington in the group, there was a really big TV show, and we did a lot of the homes for that show. And so when we led into that, we would see the uptick of the sample packs ordered when the Sunday night show would air and our logo would pop up. We would see an influx in how many people were ordering samples, and we knew that the revenue was going to come. So we leaned heavily into that from a marketing standpoint. And I think there are things like that available in almost every business. You just have to be creative enough to find them.
Very cool. And Nate, as we look to wrap up, looking back, anything that really stands out? And do you think that loyalty programs and those types of programs get more important moving forward, less important? Curious.
I think it more important for the brand. And I think there's a needle that's going to have to be threaded here, because I think as we move into 2026, you're going to see digital wallets become more of a thing. I think the traditional 6-step checkout is going to die. I think people are going to want to leverage payment tools like Affirm and Sezzle and Bread and a lot of these other companies that are out there doing pay-as-you-go. I think you've got people who are Apple customers. They want to use Apple Pay everywhere they go, and they don't come to you if you don't have Apple Pay. And so I think there's a needle that's got to be threaded here between a seamless checkout, but at the same time, messaging your loyalty clubs and how that can be a part of their relationship with the brand. So I think it's a needle that I don't know that I have the answer yet, but I'm working on it, on how you could thread that needle and efficiently get people through the checkout process, but at the same time, hammer home the value of your brand and why they want to be emotionally connected to you.
Very cool. Well, Nate, appreciate your time. This was a great follow-up episode. Really, really enjoyed it. Thanks again. And if anyone wants to connect, I'm assuming they can find you on LinkedIn.
They can. Just search The Natrix, and that's my LinkedIn profile. So you'll find me there.
Thanks, Nate.
Thanks. Have a great day.
The e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.